Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jacinta. It is your first time here. Thank you for stopping by. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to cut and sew this chiffon gown. If it's what you love to learn, kindly watch till the end. And if you're yet to subscribe, please hit on the subscribe button below and also turn on your notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Without wasting much time, let's get started with this tutorial. This is the fabric I'll be making use of. It's a chiffon fabric and I have 5 yards here. I also have this black piece of fabric about half yard that I'll be using for the combination. Firstly, I'll fold my fabric into two and determine the wideness of the fabric I'll be working with. So I marked quarter of my bust circumference plus 3 inches allowance. Okay, so I'm using my bust circumference because that is the biggest body measurement I'll be using. Afterwards, I'll pin it down to avoid shifting. You know, this is a chiffon fabric, so I'm going to be working with a lot of pins. This fabric is very heavy because it's 5 yards and it keeps pulling everything off the table. So instead of struggling with the whole fabric, I'll cut out the portion I'll be needing for the upper front. I've already marked the width, so I'll go ahead now and mark my half length, add half an inch for joining the lower part and cut it out. After cutting out the front piece, I'll fold my fabric into two for the back piece and place the front piece on it, leaving about 1.5 inch at the center back for the zip allowance. Then I'll go ahead and cut it out. After cutting, I'll pin the front and back piece together. And from the top of my fabric, I'll mark half inch downwards and square across. This half inch is for joining of the front and back shoulder. Placing my tape on that half inch, I will mark 10 inches downwards on my bust line and square across. We already have our half length. On that half inch line, which is also the shoulder line, I will mark half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. On that 8 inches, I'm going to come downwards by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'll mark 3 inches inwards from the center front for my neck width and 3 inches downwards for the neck depth. And for the back neck depth, I marked 1 inch. Then I'll go ahead and connect I'll connect the marks with my curved ruler, and I'll also connect the shoulder slope. From the bust line, I'll mark 1.5 inches upwards. With a straight line, I'll connect it to the 1 inch shoulder slope. I will extend the line outwards like so, and that will be my chest line. I will mark the midpoint of that straight line. On that midpoint, I'll come in by ½ inch. And on the chest line, I'll mark quarter of my bust circumference. Then use my curved ruler to connect from the shoulder slope. So that ½ inch I came in by to quarter of my bust circumference to form my armhole curve. I will mark 1.5 inches sewing allowance on the chest line, and on the half length, I'm going to mark quarter of my waist circumference, add 1.5 inches sewing allowance and 1 inch for my dart. At the center back, on the allowance I added for the zip, I will mark 1 inch on the shoulder and ½ inch on the half length. I'm marking ½ inch on the half length to avoid zipper bulge. On that half length, I will replace the remaining ½ inch on the side back. I'll connect the center back, and I'll also connect the side back and the side front. I'm going to mark a straight dart. On the half length, I will mark 4 inches from the center front and mark 1 inch downwards from the bust line, then connect the straight line to meet the 4 inches I marked on the half length. I will also notch the dart line. Afterwards, I'll go ahead and cut this out. After cutting, I'm going to cut out the line I will use to turn the neckline on the front and back piece. So I'll be using this fabric also as a lining. So after cutting this main fabric, I'll cut another piece for the front and back piece. So that's exactly like this. That will serve as the lining. I was done cutting the upper part. What I'm going to do now is to cut the lower part of this dress. The lower part of this dress has 2 steps. Okay, the first step is a flay, a half flay, and the second step is gathers. So to cut the flay part of skirts of this dress, I am going to fold my fabric in a triangle form like this. After folding this way, I will divide my waist circumference by 3.14 because that is half of radius of a circle. I will place my tape at the tip of my fabric and mark whatever I get downwards in a circle form like this. So you see the way I'm marking it, that's why I'm going to mark whatever you get after dividing by 3.14. Afterwards, I will connect it. After marking that, you're going to measure that line. You're going to measure that line to be sure it gives you quarter of your waist circumference, okay? Because this one we folded now is just for the front, okay? So make sure that it gives you quarter of your waist circumference. That is your waist circumference divided by 4. If it's less than, you go downwards and remark this semicircle. But if it's more than, you go upwards and remark this semicircle. Hope you guys understand what I'm saying. So after marking that, I'm going to impute the length I want. From that curved line, I'm going to mark 13 inches downwards, okay? So how I got this 13 inches is I minused my full gown length from my half length, and whatever I get, I'm going to take out 13 inches from it. The remaining length will be marked on the second layer. Afterwards, I'll go ahead and cut this out. After cutting out the front piece, I will place the front piece on the folded fabric, leaving 1 inch for zip allowance on the center back. Then go ahead and cut this out. I'll also cut out the lining for the front and back piece of this fillet parts. Now for the sleeve, minusing ½ inch, I will take the measurement of my armhole. So this is a fillet sleeve, okay? So I'll be cutting it in form of a fillet. You can cut this as a full fillet or a half fillet, but advise you cut it as a half fillet because when I finished cutting this as a full fillet, the fillet was too much for the sleeve, so I had to reduce the fillet, okay? So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2. I'm going to fold it again into 4 like this. Because I'm cutting a full fillet, I'm going to divide my round armhole measurement by 6.28. I'll place my tape on the tip of my fabric here. I'll mark whatever I get. Afterwards, I marked my sleeve length. This includes the joining and the folding allowance, okay? So I marked 13 inches. After marking my length, I'll go ahead and cut this out. Then I'll use this to cut the second sleeve. After cutting the 2 sleeves, I'm going to reduce the length of the side that will be on the armhole. If you don't do this, the side that will be on the shoulder will be shorter than that of the armhole. Now I'm going to be cutting the second step of the skirt part of this dress. So I'm going to head to fold the entire fabric I have left for the length of this second step that will making gather stitches. I will minus 12 inches from my skirt length. The skirt length is from my half length to the full length. So I'm minusing the 12 inches we used to cut the fillet from the skirt length to get the length of this part that we'll be using for the gathers. So I had about 30 inches. After marking the length, I am going to mark the width, okay? So the wideness does not have any specific measurement because you are going to be doing gathers, okay? So I'm just using the remaining fabric I have here. I'll just cut out this part that is not straight. Now for the black fabric I will use to combine it, it's going to be 2 inches wide, so that when I fold ½ inch on both sides, I will have 1 inch left, okay? So this fabric I'm using is pieces, so I'll be joining it to form one long piece. I was done cutting. Now I'm going to be joining all my pieces together. So I'm going to head to notch my dart line. I will mark 5.5 inches upwards from that notch I made. This is going to be the length of my front dart. I'll be sewing these darts separately on both the lining and the main fabric. The back dart is going to be 2 inches above the length of the front dart. The front dart is 5.5 inches, while the back dart is going to be 7.5 inches. I was done sewing the dart for all my pieces. What I'm going to do now is to join the shoulders of the lining separate and that of the main fabric separate. I was done joining the two shoulders. What I'm going to do now is to turn the neckline. So I'm going to place the lining and the main fabric front facing each other, making sure that the neckline of the lining aligns with that of the main fabric. I'll pin it down, then go over to my machine and join the two using 1/2 inch. I've also gone ahead to fold the bottom part of the fabric that I'll be gathering. I was done turning the neckline. What I'm going to do now is to join the first step of our skirt part to the upper part. I'll place the main fabric on top while the lining is going to be under. That means the upper part is going to be between the main fabric and the lining of the skirt part. I'll do the same for the back side. I was done joining and this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to mark the midpoint of the second layer of the skirt part. This is where I'll be attaching the black piece of fabric. I'll keep marking the mid length from one end to the other end. Afterwards, I'll place the black piece of fabric on that mid length that I've marked and I'll sew it on both sides. I will also attach the black piece of fabric on the front side of this upper part. I'll fold the upper front part into two and iron it so that I can get the midline. After ironing it, I'll open it up so you can see the midline. I'm going to use my chalk to mark it very well so that it will be visible. Then I will place that black piece of fabric on it. I'm going to be sewing it on this line and I'll also sew it on the half length. I will also join the black piece of fabric at the back of this upper part, only on the half length. I was done attaching the black fabric and this is what it looks like. What I'm going to do now is to join the sleeves. I will notch the center of the sleeve and place it front facing front on the shoulder of the main fabric and join it on both sides using 1/2 inch. I was done attaching the sleeve. What I'm going to do now is to close the two sides. So I'll place the front and back front facing each other and I'm going to pin the two sides, the front and back sides together, making sure that the two sides are equal. After pinning, I will mark 1.5 inch on both sides, then go back to my machine and join them. What I'm going to do now is to gather the upper part of the second layer of the skirt part. I was done gathering. What I'm going to do now is to attach it to the bottom part of the first layer. I was done with that and this is what it looks like. The last thing I'm going to do is to attach this black piece of fabric on the joining I just made between the gathers and the first layer. Okay, this is where I'm going to be attaching the black piece of fabric. Afterwards, I'm going to close the zip side. So I'll attach my zip and I'll close the zip side. And that will be all for the cutting and sewing of this chiffon dress. If you find this video helpful and you've learned something, please do not go without subscribing. It goes a long way to encourage me to drop more tutorials. Thanks for watching and see you guys in my next tutorial.